Alright, so y'all go ahead and do the factoring and the math knowledge question for today. Pause the video, and then once everyone is finished, you can unpause the video and I'll go over the correct answers. So for the factoring, we're going to factor out the greatest common factor, which is 2x. We're going to be left with x squared minus 25. That'll factor as x minus 5 times x plus 5. And so that would be the answer for your factoring. For the math knowledge question, which of the following is an equation of the line that passes through those points in the standard xy coordinate plane? So I'm just going to solve for the equation. You could just plug in and see which of the equations works and which one doesn't. But I'm just going to go ahead and find the equation myself. So I'm going to do my slope, 3 minus negative 13, 1 minus negative 3. 13 plus 3 is 16 over 4. So my slope is going to be a 4. And then I'm going to have y equals mx plus b. My y is 3, my slope is 4, my x is 1. So that means that my b value is negative 1. So I can say y equals 4x minus 1. Now they have solved it for the whole number. And so I can say y minus 4x equals negative 1. And if I negate all of my signs, I have negative y plus 4x equals 1, which is b. But again, if you want, you can just plug both of those points into your equations until you find one that works for both. Okay? So we are looking at lesson 113 today. We're looking at synthetic division, and then we're going to look at roots and zeros. Now, synthetic division is pretty nice. So I hope you like it and you understand it after this lesson. And then roots and zeros, we've actually already done a little bit of those already this year. So for math, in your math classes, we use the word algorithm to describe a repetitive computational procedure. So anything that you do over and over and over again is called an algorithm, okay? And so we use long division. That is considered an algorithm. So I'm going to set up a long division problem, like what you learned back in elementary school. I learned it in 3rd grade. I don't know when you did it. Three won't go into 1, so we put a 0, and then we do 0 times 3, 0, subtract, you get a 1, and you would bring down your 2, and so 3 will go in to it 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12, you subtract, you get 0, you bring down your 4, 3 will go into 4 1 times, multiply, you get 3, you subtract and you get 1, you bring down your 7, and it'll go in 5 times, so you have 15, and you have a remainder of 2. Y'all remember doing that long division long time ago? We also have done this kind of long division. Something like that maybe. You'd need to add in your 0x squared here. We did that at the beginning of the year. Well, synthetic division is going to be dealing with this, but it's going to be making it a little bit easier, or at least quicker. Maybe not easier, but it will definitely make it go quicker. So the quicker algorithm for long division is called synthetic division, and that's what we're going to be looking at in just a minute. So we want to use synthetic division to divide negative 4x squared plus 13 plus x cubed by negative 3 plus x. So the first thing that you need to do is to put your polynomial in the correct order. Highest exponent down to lowest exponent. So what we're going to do here is rewrite it so that we have x minus 3, so that it's highest exponent down to lowest exponent. Now we're going to start by looking at the coefficients of this polynomial. So the coefficient of our first term is a 1, and then we have a negative 4. We're missing an x term, so we put a 0 because its coefficient is 0, and then we put 13. You're going to leave a line, and then you're going to draw a horizontal line, because we're going to fill in some numbers underneath that in a minute. And then you're going to have part of a box. I just call it a box, but it's only part of it. For whatever reason, they only draw part. And you always take, when you have x minus 3, you're always going to take the opposite of your number. So x minus 3, we're going to put a 3 here, because the opposite of negative 3 is 3. So you bring down the first number and you just write it as is. Then you're going to take whatever number is here and you're going to multiply it by this 3. So 1 times 3 is 3, and that number is going to go right here. Then you're going to add or subtract the numbers in this column to get -1. So we take that -1 and multiply it by the 3 again, which is -3, then it goes right here. So add those together and you get -3. So -3 times this number here is -9, and it goes right here. And so 13 minus 9 is 4. Now, we started with an x to the third and we divided by an x. So we went down in our exponents by 1. So this is going to be an x squared, and then we have our x term, and then our remainder is what's left over. So our polynomial that's left is going to be 1x squared, or just x squared, minus 1x, so minus x, minus 3, and then our remainder is 4. So we have plus 4 over x minus 3. And so that would be how you would use synthetic division to divide. So we're going to look at another example. We want to use synthetic division to divide these. So the number that's going to go in our box is going to be a -3 this time. Because remember, you always switch the sign of whatever there is whenever they have x plus 3. So now we're going to put our coefficients. We have 2. We need to put a 0 because we're missing an x cubed. So we have a 1, a 2, and a -1. So the first number always comes down. You don't do anything with it. And then we have 2 times -3. That's going to be -6. Add to get -6. We're going to multiply -6 by -3 to get 18. Add those to get 19. We're going to multiply the 19 by -3 to get -57. Add those and you get -55. And you're going to multiply -55 by -3. And you're going to get a positive 165. And then you add those to get 164. So we started out with x to the 4th, and we divided by an x. So we're going to be left with x to the 3rd, and then we'll have an x squared, and then an x, and then we have our remainder. And I put the r just so that I put something in between every set of numbers. So my answer is 2x cubed minus 6x squared plus 19x minus 55, and then plus my remainder, which is 164 over x plus 3. Okay, so that is going to be your answer there. Now we're going to look at zeros and roots. The word 0 and root can be a little bit confusing because they mean almost the exact same thing. They're not exactly the same thing, but they mean almost the same thing. Okay, so the word 0 is used with the word polynomial. And a polynomial is where you have a bunch of terms. Okay? The word root is used with an equation. So an equation is when you take a polynomial and you add an equal to 0 or an equal to 10 or whatever. You change your polynomial to an equation by making it into where it has an equal sign. So that's where the word root and 0 are different, but they mean almost the same thing. You're going to get the same numbers whenever you're looking for a root or a 0. It just depends on if you have a polynomial or an equation. So we want to use synthetic division to see if -2 is a 0 of this polynomial. Now, whenever they tell us use -2 or to see if -2 is the 0, the number we put in our box is going to be -2. It wasn't x minus 2, it was just -2. So we use exactly what number they give us. We're going to use our coefficients for our synthetic division. So we're going to have a 1, -2. We're missing an x squared term, so we put a 0. And then 5 and -10. Now we're going to use synthetic division just like we've done on the last two examples. Bring down your 1. 1 times -2 is -2. And then we have -4. When you multiply, you get 8. Add those to get 8. When you multiply by -2, you get -16. When you add those, you get -11. And when you multiply, you get positive 22. and when you add, you get 12. Now it said, use synthetic division to see if it's a 0. It is a 0 if the remainder is 0. Well, our remainder is 12. 12 is obviously not 0. So, is this a 0? No, because we did not get 0 for our remainder. So that's how you do those. Looking at the next one, use synthetic division to see if it's a root. Well, it's a root because we've got a polynomial equation here. We have an equation, not just a polynomial. But you're going to set it up the same way. So we're going to have -3. It's going to go in our box. Remember, we don't switch the sign because they told us, use -3. You only switch the sign whenever it's x minus or x plus the number, okay? So we're going to start with our coefficients of a 2, and we don't have an x to the third term or an x squared term, so we have to put zeros for them. We do have an x term. We do not have a constant, so we do have to put a 0 for it. If you're missing a constant, you do have to go all the way down to it, okay? So make sure you put that last 0 there. So now we're going to put our 2 down here. We're going to say 2 times -3, which is -6. Add, you get -6. Multiply, you get 18. Bring those down and you get 18. 18 times -3 is going to be -54. If you add those, you're going to get -86. And then if you multiply again, you're going to get 258. And so add and you get 258. Is this a root of our equation? No, because this number here is clearly not 0. And so since it's not 0, is it a root? No, we do not have a root for -3. Okay, so that's how you do synthetic division and how you use it to find roots and zeros. The only time you're going to have a root and a 0 is if your remainder is a 0. So on your homework, you do not have any to omit, so make sure you do all of them tonight so that we can go over any questions that you have tomorrow.